because I got sick of Jimmy. I got to be honest. So I'm not saying he's gone forever, but this is more how I feel now. Um, so we're gonna go with, and he's nervous because this week's weird. Because guys, this was the plan. But as far as I understand, I will know for sure tomorrow. I don't think we actually have Latin on Thursday. Probably not Friday either. So because that's when I think you're gonna come to the class like normal, but I'll be the one to administer at that point the English part of the test. So I think math is like today through Wednesday, and maybe not Wednesday if I'll finish tomorrow, but don't rush. And then Thursday and Friday, I think is both reading comprehension and the grammar one. I don't know if they're calling it English or grammar. Anyway, that's what I think, and I'll know for sure tomorrow. But that means all we can really count on this week is doing the homework, which will be due Wednesday. Don't have it printed out yet because I had to print hundreds of things this morning and don't want to hog the printer. I'll have it for SA. Just lectiones for chapter 17. Like five, no. Oh, yeah. For some reason, I only have 3 lectiones written for this chapter. So congratulations, you guys get to do 3 translations for Wednesday. So you're welcome. And then the test we were going to take on Friday will probably be Tuesday, maybe Monday. If it's Monday, since I never give quizzes on Monday, I'll give you like 20 minutes of unit class to study, and then you'll probably do really well on it. But otherwise, it'll be Tuesday. And it's going to be vocab from 16 to 15, which I'll show you in a second, and then one of the sentences that we translate on Wednesday from 17. I know that's like kind of really confusing, but everything's going to like be normal again once we get to 18. Then I'm going to slow down again, take 2 weeks per chapter, and it'll be the passive voice, and we'll get back into kind of where we were last semester, honestly. So that'll be happening soon. So listen up, make sure you're not reading. Only one warning for reading a book through my class before I'm going to give the attention. I finally decided that I've got to be okay with staying after school on Thursday, because not really you guys, because of some of my 9th and 7th graders. I just got to be ready to give these detentions out, man. Not why I went into teaching, but it's what I got to do. These are the chapter 15 words. I see a lot of easy, or I see 3 easy nouns. And fast will get mixed up with tempus, temporis, time. So memoria and Italia are speak for themselves. You're supposed to know 1 through 20. We'll go back over those this week. I'll have you guys kind of like try to guess what the number is, but I'll probably put a couple of numbers between 1 and 10. Honestly, maybe not 11 or 20 on the vocab quiz. Easy, adjective, and then some verbs, some of which are kind of nasty, honestly. Iacchio, I hate Iacchio. It has an alternate spelling for Iecchi, but it just means to throw. It's related, I know this won't help, but it's related to eject, right? If you treat that I like a J, it's like eject. You're ejecting something out. It's kind of a way of saying you're throwing something. Timeos, to fear, like timoris is the noun fear, like timid. And then this is 16. So yeah, 2.5 kids, you probably, all of this will come back to you really quickly. You just need to look over it quickly. But 1.5 kids, this will be something you want to do. If you have free time, just like bust out. This is page 134. This is 126. And just kind of go through these. A lot of these are the adjectives, the irregular ones, right? That's what this chapter is about. Not irregular, sorry, but third declension adjectives. A lot of them are really easy. The only one that doesn't have a really clear-cut related word is ingens for huge. But even something like hilaire, we get accelerate from it. But the other ones is like more obviously. Brevis is brief. Wow. Acer is kind of hard, but acrid is an English word that means a bitter. All right, this is a new dimension of the class. It is a more legitimate version of the vocabulary refresher sheet, because I know you guys are sick of hearing me saying, y'all should be writing these down. I can't believe you're not writing these down. Now you have a template to write down all sorts of words that we come across that you don't know. I'll be checking these at the end of every week. So instead of just a homework grade and a quiz grade, we now will have a 3rd weekly grade. Because this week is weird, I probably won't look at this one until Monday. But you'll flip it over after I check it on Monday and use the back half for the following week. How do you get all your points on this? I want to see at least 4 or 5 words in each category. This is nouns and adjectives, because those are the 2 parts of speech that both have declensions. Verbs, I should have made this line bigger. I will in the future, because I want you to write off 4 principal parts in the future, but right now you probably couldn't. And then everything else, meaning prepositions, adverbs, and conjunctions, will go at the bottom. If I know you to be someone who has always gotten an A on like all your vocab quizzes, then it's fine if you could have a little less than 4 in all the categories. But I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons I was okay with kind of pushing y'all back, because of the vocab. Grammar, I think y'all were okay at towards around chapter 20, but vocab, it's just so many words, and you got so many during the quarantine that we need to make up for not knowing some of these amazing words. What is this? This is for 1.5. Ignore. That's chapter 10 stuff. I have all these slides for 2 classes that really annoy me on Friday, but y'all don't really need them. So let me read it anyway, and then we'll get into it. Okay, so this is Lizzie the Latin Lizard, and he has this to say. Some students, due to their priority to socialize with other peers or read books, will often choose socialization to the detriment of their own focus, ambition, and self-awareness. This is natural, but awareness of the fact that this time may prove beneficial. You're only going to be in high school one time. That tells you who this is actually intended for. For better or for worse, your performance here and the choices you make regarding how you participate in learning and come to understand learning and its role in your life and its function will have ramifications for the rest of your life. I hope that's not a dreary sounding thing. I just think it's like a fair warning. I kind of wish teachers talked to me more about things like college and stuff when I was y'all's age, especially high school. That's when it obviously gets very important. You don't have to wait until college or beyond to start looking for things like a lifelong passion or interest, the beginnings of an idea of what you want to do in your life, career-wise or otherwise. All of those things are things you can start thinking of now. Again, that's another thing. Some adults, I think, are sheepish about telling kids that they should be thinking of their future career and kind of putting that pressure on them. I kind of get that. And it does take time for a lot of people. A lot of people, their first year of college, they just do general education because they don't know what they want to major in yet. Or you start in a different major and you switch in your sophomore or junior year. Like I did that. I was graphic design to English and Latin, and I kept changing until I picked up double majors and was in a totally different thing than what I started in. But yeah, I think it's not a bad idea. I mean, y'all are about to be in high school, and so it's worth it, I think, to just sit there and be like, what do I really truly like, and is that something I potentially actually want to do with my life? And I mean literally anything, because it's helpful to kind of start to percolate on that stuff now. Do you want to be a video game programmer or a concept artist, a comic book writer, a fashion designer, and go to Fashion Week or something, a politician, whatever it is? There's something in almost all your classes that will be relevant to whatever you go into potentially. I mean, not every single class, but math is obviously super applicable to so many fields. Latin allows us to talk about things like politics and a little bit of philosophy and some art stuff even a little bit. So things like this can be influential. Huh? They use a lot of Latin. Right. Oh yeah, that's true. That's very true. Yeah, my kind of a boilerplate thing when I first introduce kids to Latin is actually I forget about the music thing, but yeah, there's a lot of Latin and Latinate Italian. Right. And some of that's Italian, but yeah, it's it goes back to Latin. And then if you study law, as long as you don't go to Louisiana where they study Napoleonic Code, which French would be better for, the Latin can help you learn French. A lot of legal terms in Latin and law school. Medical language, whether it's biology or medical school, tons of Latin. It's all bones, body parts are Latin basically. And what else? What's the other thing I would say? Oh, and then literature too, I guess. You probably shouldn't get a major in literature unless you want to be a professor. But all of the Western canon of literature is so influenced by Roman literature that it's kind of handy to have even a little bit of Latin.
I wanted to be a surgeon.
Surgeon? So, I mean, obviously science. But then, like I said, Latin will actually, it'll be weird, but one day you'll be in medical school and you'll look at a word and you'll know what it means before the professor tells you what it is. And that'll be because of me. Well, probably not. But, and again, this is the last thing, but it's not really for y'all. Y'all get it, but I've decided to say it to everyone today. Imagine a class where roughly 1/3 of the students are willing to give into the temptation to be disruptive and unfocused. It's not going to let me move this thing? Okay. This one student, whether they understand or care, is deciding to not only negatively impact their own learning and success, but then toxically infringing on the opportunity of the 3 other students. There should not be a decision for a single disruptive student to make. Would you let a single person make decisions for even a single other person? I sound way more strict than I ever said. Again, I'm just practicing for the class that I actually need to say this to. And then I just go on to say that teachers do not go into teaching because they like disciplining people. Absolutely not, right? That is by far the worst part of teaching. It's that, and then grading big stacks of things. And then everything else, ideally, if you actually enjoy teaching, is amazing. because the reason teachers like get into teaching, presumably, and I think especially for all the upper school teachers, is because like that subject that we teach at one point like totally blew our own minds. And I don't know that matters to you, but I think it's a teacher's goal to at least potentially spark some kind of interest that is similar to that. Yeah, I didn't just like get into teaching Latin because I was like, oh, Latin's kind of cool. It was like, no, there's like a point in college when for some, I don't know why exactly, but it blew my mind and it broke my brain. And it's probably happened at Chartier. Probably had like, I don't know, like loved math. McCullough's lifelong reader. She probably has read more books than anybody. So are y'all inspired and motivated now?
No.
Yeah, I know sometimes it seems like no, that was rude. It's not a funny joke. So I know sometimes it seems like it's just the language and the words and the grammar rules, but it is something that allows us to talk about this deeper, richer, incredibly beautiful classical world that is just all encompassing. And then sometimes you get to like read really cool quotes by someone like Marcus Aurelius, but I don't feel like doing that today. Okay, so something came up. I guess it wasn't this class. I think it was my 9A, but it came up that we were like, we know that Zeus is married to Hera / Juno, and we know that Hades / Pluto is married to Persephone / Proserpina. She's a really bad Roman name. But Poseidon, someone was like, who was Poseidon married to? And I was like, I don't know. And I had to look it up, and I was like, okay. At one point, I did know. It's this woman, Amphitrite or Amphitrite. I'm not sure which one I like better. I think people say Amphitrite, but I'm like, that sounds weird. So yeah, this is a nymph, a sea nymph. She's got 49 sisters. All right, they're called nereids. They're like ocean nymphs. What's a nymph, anyone? I'm talking so fast. Chloe? Exactly, yeah. That's a perfect way to put it. I was putting it this way this morning for kids. I was like, it's kind of the Greek mythological version of a fairy. Though we tend to think of fairies as small, and I feel like nymphs are kind of like normal size. But they're like mythological beings that have like some divine lineage, like they're the children of gods, but they themselves aren't quite full gods. Alyssa?
So, Poseidon's married to Amphitrite, and she has 49 sisters. I guess Ariel's many sisters runs in the bloodline. Poseidon's technically Ariel's grandpa.
Oh, yeah, like Poseidon is King Triton. Yeah.
Triton's dad.
That's a lot of.
Explains the 39 sisters of Ariel.
Yeah, it's a lot of in-laws. Apparently, at first she didn't like Poseidon, but then Poseidon's friend Delphin, the dolphin god, go figure, convinced her to be married to him. And her dad, this is covered up, but her dad, Nereus, is sometimes called the Old Man of the Sea by Homer, which is weird because Homer also calls a shape-shifting merman guy who also looks like King Triton from Little Mermaid. Proteus, he calls him the Old Man of the Sea too. So it's like, who's the king of the sea here? I thought it was Neptune and Poseidon. What it must be is that these are like Titan figures. They're like older mythological figures that were eventually supplanted by Poseidon / Neptune when the Olympians took over. So, yeah. And kind of like mer people, right? Also, Ponyo might be slightly inspired by this in the fact that Grandma Mare, her mom that shows up at the end, is kind of an amalgamation of various female personifications of the ocean. Anybody seen Ponyo?
I want to see.
Okay, crazy. But it came out like at the right time for it. I feel like y'all would have seen it maybe, but it's a Ghibli movie like Kiki's Liver Service and Spirited Away, but it is a little more like kid oriented. So watching it as an adult, it's a beautifully animated movie, but the story isn't like an amazing story if you're an older person. There's a lot of Ghibli movies where it's like kind of need to grow up with them to understand them. Like if you watch Totoro for the first time when you're 20, you're probably not going to get it, which is unfortunate. But yeah, there's Ponyo. She's cool. She's cool. All right. That's not that cool. And then I was talking about how we mentioned Hades. I'm talking about myths just semi-randomly. Some things came up last week. But it's like Mondays are always a slog. So I'm going to try to always talk about myths a little bit on Mondays just to like get us back on the groove with something more obviously interesting than Latin. No offense. But this is poor Persephone here being returned to her mother from the underworld by Mercury. What a beautiful painting. And yeah, if you're wondering why there's snow on the ground, it's because Persephone here, the daughter of who?
She's Demeter.
Yeah, Demeter, right? Demeter is what kind of goddess? Yeah, like nature and agriculture and like spring, I guess. This is her daughter, and so I guess that makes her a goddess too. And she's like straight up kidnapped by Hades. And it's kind of weird. Like eventually, it almost seems like she's weird. I lost a picture. I have a picture of like some video game that like imagines her as the queen of the underworld, and it seems like she's like into it. Like she like shops at Hot Topic, and she's like okay with being in the underworld. But then there's like another side of her where it's like she's like initially brought there as a captive prisoner, and so there's kind of like these two different takes on Persephone in art. I don't know what this is, but it came up on Google and I thought it looked cool. Yeah.
And then he would allow her to be up with the real half to
Right. Yeah, that's a compromise, and yeah, that's like why winter happens because for like roughly a third of the year, depending on how long the Greeks think spring is or winter is, her mom is like really upset when she's down being a queen of the underworld. So that's why winter happens because like this nature goddess is just like kind of like missing her daughter.
There's a comic on Webtoon. An interesting way that they think about it's basically they're in the Lord of the War. Hades had saw her and said, "Oh yeah, she's more beautiful than Aphrodite." Aphrodite got jealous and threw her into Hades' car, and Hades accidentally drove her home.
That's interesting. There's multiple web comics about Greek gods. Once some seventh grader showed me one, but it was like really inappropriate or like it was just awkward for a student to be. I was like, but I mean, I know like you guys do whatever you want online when you're at home, but yeah, and that leads us to this, and we'll move on to some Latin in a second. But like in academia, which is a fancy word for colleges, there's this field, like no joke, this is real, called reception studies. And it's kind of a subfield within the classical departments of various colleges. Again, classical departments are kind of like usually in the same building as a foreign language department, and it's just not again. I've never said this before. It's just anything that has to do with Greek or Latin. It's like the entire Greco-Roman civilization world. So it's like the languages and history classes and stuff. But also now recently reception classes, which it's kind of a way where like academics can write about things kind of silly like video games or even like Disney's Hercules. Because all reception is when modern culture or like media is kind of reacting to or receiving something more ancient or old. Like that's all it is. It's like, oh, like Disney's Hercules is a response to the 3,000 plus year old mythological story about Hercules. Yeah, that's like counts as reception. And you kind of like investigate and analyze the way in which it's like changing the story or just like using it for a new purpose. And so there's like a bunch of video games that are based on Greek and Roman stuff. This Hades one came out last year. It's called a roguelike, where every time you go into this dungeon that's like really hard, it changes as a procedurally generated dungeon. And you're like this guy Zagreus who's like escaping the underworld. And so us talking about that in class is not totally off topic. It's reception. And something like the webcomics Alyssa was just talking about is reception. And whatever this Phoenix Rising, this new Ubisoft game where you're like this Icarus kind of guy, never spell Phoenix that way. And yeah, just like all sorts of stuff. It's like all over the place. Disney's Hercules is like the obvious example, but can anybody think of other examples? There's what is it? I mean, there's all sorts of movies, a lot of movies and video games. Harry Potter has fake Latin in it. There's that silly Percy Jackson thing. Does anybody in here like Percy Jackson, or is that a different generation? I didn't mean silly. Yeah, well, that's like Narnia. Sometimes the movie just like doesn't live up, and I just never read it. I literally don't. I just think the name Percy sounds funny, but it's short for Perseus, so it makes sense.
I tried to read Percy Jackson, but I really didn't like it because I had such a short attention span when I tried to read it, and it did not. I knew it was about Greek gods and stuff about that, and I read it, and if there was nothing at the beginning, and so I just lost interest, and I haven't read it since.
Not everything grabs you like Harry Potter, you know? There's a lot of books when I was a kid that came out where like you wanted it to be the new Harry Potter. Artemis Fowl, that actually was a thing for a second. I think I got to the first book. Series of Unfortunate Events. I never got past the second one, but it seemed.
I love the show.
Oh, the show? I knew it was a movie.
Is it Jim Carrey? Yeah.
Wait, is he?
Lost.
He's in the show or the movie?
Yeah, he's in the show.
Oh, they made a movie on a kid. So okay, that's cool. He reprised it for. I didn't know it was a show. Weird. But yeah. I can't think of that anymore, but there's a lot. Like if you go to Washington D.C., the architecture in the what is it called? The mall. The what is it? I don't know, all the buildings in and around the touristy part of Washington, D.C. is reception of classical architecture. All right, guys, just to brush up, chapter 16 is something that we're not dwelling on too much because it's straightforward. It is just third declension adjectives, right? So tomorrow, I'll make sure you guys bust out the templates again because you guys are woefully kind of like, what's the word? You don't know your declensions yet, what I'm trying to say. Or like you don't know enough of them, right? And so this chapter is super easy insofar as you know the third declension really well. But a lot of you guys are like struggling with the first and second. So we'll get back in the templates tomorrow. As boring as they are, that's the best way I can think of to get you guys to just like have these, right? Like by the end of this year, y'all should really know the declensions like that. Like there shouldn't be any kind of like lag time or loading time. 1.5 kids, y'all are sort of allowed to feel that way about the third declension only. But first and second, we got to move on from that. So we got these new additives. It's like brave and strong. Dulcus is sweet. Phyllis is easy, ominous, awe, brevis, brief, difficilus. We have this, it means bitter, and we have Keller means swift. And then potens is like capable, like kind of like possume, right? To be able to. Synex is old and Ingens is huge. I already talked about this thing. Any questions about this thing? This is real. It's going to be a participation point. All right, and now you need to bust out a notebook, unfortunately, because we're going to talk about chapter 17. Now, 2.5 kids are technically allowed to write slightly less notes, but 1.5 kids, you're going to have to, at least the computer thing, the test is on a computer. So if I make your hand hurt right now, it's not a detriment to the test. How many people finished it today? Oh, wow, okay. Hey, guys, I shouldn't even ask. I don't rush tomorrow. Don't you rush. Y'all got to get us some money. I don't actually know. Some tests are like that. It's probably not this one, so I think that's a joke.
That's cool if like you force like children and you get money.
Yeah, well, the real thing we get money from is from people coming on count day. That is like the most important thing. It's like it decides the budget for the entire rest of the year. How many people show up, and like that's a district rule. That's not an LTA thing. Maybe in every school district or just Colorado. I don't know. Maybe. Latin test. There was gonna be, right? Do I need to jump back? Well, okay. No, I'll just say it. There was on Friday. There was going to be, and it's kind of confusing. It's the vocab from 15 and 16. And then one sentence from the homework we'll do this week. That was going to be Friday. It'll probably now be Tuesday. But that's us knocking 15, 16, and 17 out all at once. And then I'll probably sneak us chapter 17 vocab quiz in next week, just like on a random day. Huh? What about? Oh, no. It's just reading comprehension and grammar. I don't. They either for grammar English or reading. There's no science, actually. Weirdly, no science. Apparently, the science one exists, but we're not doing it this year. We're just doing math in the 2 English ones. Once more grammar, once more, like, you have to read the whole thing. But no, that's it. I think you're going to come here to take it, but yeah, no. I wish there was a Latin thing. Next year, I'll force you guys to take the National Latin exam. It's totally optional. Doesn't have any effect on your grade. But it'll be the last thing we all do is the Latin class together, okay? We can. We totally can. Do you mind helping it up until it turns red? Sorry. All right, guys. This is one thing I really enjoy the textbook after this point. And that's why it's cool that y'all got the chance to kind of like double back for a second. Because now we can proceed into it, and it should be more comfortable for you guys. And again, 1.5 kids, I'll just always kind of curve you. So you still need to try your best, and it's going to be slightly harder to keep up. But I'll grade you a little differently, you know? So chapter 17 is all about this thing called the relative pronoun. So if y'all notice, we get just like a ridiculous amount of pronouns between chapter 9 and I guess like now. And then it kind of stops. So this is sort of the end of this like pronoun dump that happens in the early double-digit chapters. And that's part of why I was inspired this morning to write all of the pronouns. I'm realizing like it'd be good because I'm just writing the Latin. Like, do y'all think I need to like write him and her for all of these, or should you just be able to like figure it out based on the case? I'm not sure. I'll think about it. I can maybe squeeze them in some places or like write them somewhere. But we have all of our personal pronouns: first person, second person, singular, plural, and third person. These are the really nasty ones, like him, her, to him, his, her, etc. So hopefully the handwriting is like kind of okay enough where you can sort of see. We have third person reflexive. You need to say like of himself or to himself, herself, whatever. And then I'll definitely fix these up to make them look nicer. But we got these reflexive possessive adjectives like sua, sua, suum, his own, her own, its own. And then last but not least is the intensive ones, ipsa, ipsa, ipsum. I'll make those look better. But that's just like himself, herself, etc. So we have all the old pronouns up here so that we can focus on these nasty, slash really awesome and useful qui, qui, quad pronouns. That's how we're going to refer to this guy, qui, qui, quad. As you can see, the arrows indicate, just like on the board over there, that things like cuius and cui are the same for all three genders. So yeah, it's always nasty. That's the reason pronouns I think are a bummer, is because there's like 3 genders of them, whereas like all nouns just belong to 1 or 2, maybe, if it's like filius or scipulus. But at least with genitive and dative, we have this consistency. Who can tell me something about what they're observing about the nominative singular ones? Anyone? Which is an observation you can make about a pattern you see or a way to think of them. Anyone at all? Almost, Lucy? Just anything, like any observation. You could say they all start with Q. Lucy? Right. Or, sorry, yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, so there's an exception with the neuter, which is annoying. The neuter ones will not be showing up too much. So, guys, if y'all want to write the neuter ones, probably fine. Definitely the masculine feminine like that. But yeah, qui and quai are can be singular or plural. Now, to put it as simply as possible, I'll have to build on it. You're mostly going to be translating these things as like who or which or that. Who if it's a person, or if it's referring to a person, and I'll explain what that means in a second. Or which or that if it's referring to like a thing. And then, yeah, like the long I and the AE, we already kind of think of those as nominative plural. Why are the singular and the plurals the same? I don't really know. It's almost like they always, at least the nominatives, always look plural. But it's less for us to remember, so yay for us. Y'all do not need to write this, by the way. You really don't. What does somebody observe about either of the genitives, the singular or the plural ones? Anyone? Cuius, quorum, and quorum. Listen.
Y'all kind of start with Q.
Well, these do start with the Q, the plural ones. This one, just for genitive and dative, it switches over to C. But it's just cuius for all 3 genders, which is nice. Does this remind us of any other pronouns? My mask is permanently slipping. Tammy? Yes, right. Hickok, cock, and illa, and it's and the third person personal pronoun. So look at all the genitives. See how I have this the same kind of arrow that I have over here, going through all the genitives. Huius, like Huey, Dewey, Louie, that is like of this something, right? The genitive of Hickok, cock for all 3 genders. And then Ilias, same IUS, is like of that man or woman for all 3 genders. And then also we see the IUS showing as a genitive for ipsa, the ones. And we see it in third person personal pronouns like eus, which we always are going to translate eus as his or her. It can be any gender, so you just have to like either guess or the sentence makes it clear which one it is. But yeah, it's like almost all pronouns across the board except first and second personal, I guess, have this IUS showing up for genitive. So yeah, if you see a pronoun, it's got IUS as genitive, and don't be too thrown off, hopefully, by the fact that it starts with C. Because this is like, yeah, until you get used to it, you'll be like, is this related to qui, qui, quad? It's starting with a C instead of a Q. But I mean, it sounds the same. I mean, you know, QU and a hard C in English are the same noise or sound. Anybody observe anything about the dative? I'll jump to it a little bit because it's the same thing with the dative. For some reason, pronouns love the IUS in genitive, and they love at least an I somewhere in the dative. So for Hickok, it's Hewick. Wait, that's like a weird one, a worse example. There's an I in Hewick, but Ili, a long I for dative. And then, I mean, even the first and second have I's showing up at the end. And then this horrible A that doesn't even look like a word. It's going to mean like to him or her, also ends in the long I. And so we have a lot of consistency between genitive and datives. It's almost like there's a secret 6th declension for pronouns. And it's kind of super complicated. But like in a couple places, like the genitive and dative, it's the same for all sorts of different pronouns. Okay, and then accusative, I'll just jump through this. Those don't look accusative to me, right? I mean, right? This, I guess, looks third. Declension says second, but like, if you think about Q-U-U-M, would, I don't even know how you would say that. So it's quim, quam, quod, again, or quad. Don't worry too much about the neuters. But quam sure looks first declension, right? That's just normal first declension accusative. Quos and quas, first, second declension. And the ablatives, what do I notice about these singular ablatives? Say it out loud. Say it out loud. One word. Sounds like macaroni. Yeah, they all got macarons on their vowels, right? So a macaron vowel doesn't always mean it, but if it's a macaron like an O or an A, that usually is indicating ablative, right? Because we don't, over an I, that's just like a second intention style long I. Anyway, how do these work? Very good. Okay, so what is a relative clause? 2.5 kids probably remember. I really enjoy translating sentences with them, so that's why I like this part of the textbook and beyond. It starts to get really juicy. But it's just like in an English example, the man who was from Italy was my dad. What's the subject of that sentence, Braden? That's bottom English one. Yeah. Kind of dad. Dad is a predicate nominative, agreeing with the subject, which is actually just the man. And then so what a relative clause does is that it just expands on something. And so it's telling us more about the subject. Which man? Oh, the one who was from Italy. So within this little relative clause, and this is kind of important, we have a grammar that is separate from the main clause. The main clause is just the man was my dad. That's it. Very simple sentence. But then we added this relative clause that has, well, what does it have? What's one thing that the relative clause has totally separate from the main clause? Like the main clause has a subject, a verb, and then it has a predicate nominative. The relative clause also has its own verb. That's what makes it more complicated than like, we did a sentence in my last 2 classes where it was like, Aurora, a goddess, right? That's not the same because it's just saying Aurora is a goddess. What if it was like Aurora, a goddess who, a goddess who makes the sun rise? That's a relative clause because you're like putting a full-on verb in this additional little nugget that is basically just expanding on a noun in the main clause. And the noun that it expands on does not have to be the subject. In this sentence it is, but it doesn't have to. Okay, we've been on that slide for long enough. Oh, and I just go through, that's what I was supposed to be doing. Dang it. All right. Usage and agreement. Okay, do not write this first paragraph. I'll tell you all if you need to write again. Basically, what we're going to see now, if you were, the chart was the main thing, and how to translate it, right? So I forgot to do that. You definitely want to write these, right? Basically, these genitives are going to be whose, and then all of these are going to be whom. It's a big thing early on in like grade school where it's like people try to make you feel bad for using who or whom incorrectly. They're like, oh no, you meant to say whom does this belong to. But basically it just, like in English there's 3 cases. There's a subjective case in English, which in Latin we call nominative. There's a possessive case in English, which we call genitive in Latin. And then in English, we just lump together what in Latin we call the dative, accusative, and ablative. We call all of them the objective case. And so whether it's an indirect object, direct object, or an object of a prep, in English, we usually use the same form for all of them. Latin has to be all nuanced, more specific, but English, we use the same form of pronouns for the objective. And pronouns are like one of the only things we actually decline in English. We don't really decline our nouns otherwise, but pronouns do, right? Like he is a subjective form of the objective what, anyone? What's the objective form of he? So he is the subject of the sentence. I am the subject of this sentence, and I'm going to teach him, thank you. She, it becomes her, and they have possessive forms too, like his and her as well, right? Maybe y'all followed that. All right. These relative pronouns, and this is kind of important, so maybe just write this one part. we're gonna know whether we're using like the nominative, gender, dative, or whatever, based on. Well, actually, no. The case can be anything, but in a sentence like this, the who is related to man. The fancy word for this is man is the antecedent of the relative pronoun who. So in Latin, the relative pronoun needs to agree in number and gender with the antecedent, but it can be any case it needs to be, depending on what the relative clause actually is. If you were not able to follow that, I do not blame you. But let's look at some examples. The woman whom you are praising is wise. The Latin version of this is who would need to be what gender? Anyone? What gender would the who? What is whom's antecedent here? Huh? Woman, thank you. So it needs to be what gender? Singular, plural? Singular. Yeah, good. So where she's the subject of the main clause, which is just the woman is wise, and this relative clause that expands on her, this relative pronoun is actually, can anybody tell? It's actually really hard to tell what it is, like in terms of case or function. It's not the subject of the relative clause. What is you? But what is it? What is the relative pronoun in its clause? It's referring back to an antecedent, which is the subject of the sentence, but it's not the subject of the relative clause. Relative clauses have their own subjects, their own verbs, their own direct objects. So whom is what? Anyone? Y'all's brains got drained by the math test.
No.
It's a direct object. It feels weird to say it's a direct object because it feels like it's in a totally weird place for a direct object to be. If you think about it, it's like you are praising who, right? If you turned it into just like it was the main clause or a question rather, you are praising whom. There, it sounds more like a direct object, but in this context, I forgive you guys for not answering because like it doesn't look like it's going to be the direct object. But this is all just to say again, like they don't need to agree in case with the antecedent, but gender and number will be important. All right. Pretty much all what this says down here. Now let's do examples. This is when Latin comes alive, when you're getting the notes for the grammar. It's the drollest, driest thing. Once you start applying it, you're like, okay, it's not that bad. Maybe it's even borderline, a little fun, maybe. All right, who can read? Number one. Alyssa, thank you. Good. Okay, so diligo. 1.5 kids don't freak out about diligo deligera. It just means to love. It's a synonym for amo, amare. I don't know why we need two verbs that mean to like or love. But there you go. So what are these first two words, Chloe or Alyssa? Diligo, puellam. And what person number is diligo? So it's like who diligo's puellam? Right. So the subject is first singular. So it's I, you, it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just like I like the girl, and then we're gonna find more about this puellam. Puellam's a direct object there. So that's the main clause. That's like the main, like if you boil the sentence down, it's just I like the girl or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, quae ex Italia venit. That is a relative clause. So sometimes commas are gonna tip us off to the fact that we're entering a relative clause, but not always. What you want to look for is basically a qui quod. Qui quod will usually all like whatever the form it is, whatever form it is, will be the tip off that you're entering a relative clause. And you really want to get into the habit, because it won't always be the second half of the sentence like it is here, of drawing a line from the qui quod, which is almost always the first word of the clause, until you get to a verb. Again, in this sentence, it's like really easy because the verb is, I mean, it just goes until the end of the sentence. But if I like the girl, what? Who can translate that clause there? Maybe 2.5 kid? Or anybody. I'm going to stop differentiating y'all very soon. Lucy? Yes, who came from Italy. All right. Who comes? Actually, with the macron over the E, it would be came. Because when you have an E, right, literally the only difference between perfect tense and female tense is the macron over the E. But yeah, so here, can anybody tell? I know y'all just wrote that chart down, but like what case is this quae here? It can really only be one thing. Unless it was neuter accusative. It's not. Anyone at all? Parker. Yeah, it's just a nominative. So it's referring back to, or what's its antecedent, real quick, Parker? Well, which is the what of the main clause? Yeah, not the subject. The subject is I. Yeah, the direct object. Whereas the relative clause is referring back to it is the subject of its relative clauses. I really need to use two different markers to like differentiate. Anybody have any questions? I know this sounds really confusing, but it's functionally not too bad. Yeah. But again, it's just the quique clause. It could be any case. Is all the point I'm trying to make, really. But it will be referring back to a word in the main clause, which is also going to be in any given case. All right, homo de quo dicebas est amicus terus. All right, the main clause, because our editors were friendly and left commas, which won't always be the case, it's going to be homo est amicus terus. Who can be translating all of that? Who really going to translate that? You're so sleepy. 2.5 kids are going to be like more alert once we get past chapter 20 again, right? All right. So it's gonna be like the man is a dear friend. We don't see charis too much. Charis means dear. Charis, cara, carum. I don't know if there's any related words. Oh. But what about this man? De quo dicebas. Dicebas is from dico dicera, which means to someone other than Parker. What is dico dicera? Oh, y'all can't be. Oh, I failed to inspire y'all earlier. Y'all are so sneaky. What is I actually got calling people. That's all it is. Yeah. Andrew or Brayden, what does dico dicera mean? No? Caden or Luke? See, I didn't have the chicken thing yet when I made this, so I don't have lost words. But dico dicera, it sounds like it's a word a lot of people need to write down on their refresher sheet. I don't blame you. We blasted through so many words so quickly. Dico dicera, it's like see, dictum means what? Anyone out loud? There you go. To speak. It is third conjugation, and we get words like, dictate, dictionary, stuff like that. Things that have to do with words or like communication. All right, so dicebas would be what? Caden, Andrew, or Adrian. Is this the class? I never know like what part of the day. I wish 9B was like this. I would love if they seemed like almost like weirdly tired. Like that'd be great for them. For you though, it's not great. It's not a great look, guys. That makes sense, I guess. I think I'd be the most tired in first period, I guess. But I don't know, I'm not sure. After lunch sometimes if you eat too much, it's like you might be dying around 1 o'clock, I can relate to that. But like the 2.5 kids, it's like kind of after lunch. But they're like louder than any 6th grade class I've ever had. At least 3 of those kids belong in jail, like for sure. I really don't like them. Okay, but I'm not gonna tell them that anymore. Okay, so the man, from or about? What do we think? From or about?
From.
Yeah. Let's say about. The man about whom you, second person, were past tense speaking, is a dear friend. Okay, that's the sentence, all right? Oh, here we go. We got some stuff. Okay, that's nice. So quo is an ablative here. Remember, we said they have the macaroni macarons, and that should be kind of a giveaway almost if it's a macaron over an O or an A, not an I actually. And so here it's the object of de. This is the relative clause. Right here, look, I even made the relative clause, I made the commas go away. Because that's going to be happening a lot. The commas won't actually be here. Unfortunately, this one, it's not beginning with quique quod like they usually do. It's actually beginning with a preposition of which the quique quod is the object of. So that's probably the hardest it gets. Well, hopefully if it was something like this, it would be set off with commas, just to kind of throw you guys a bone. But yeah, it's a relative pronoun that is referring to homo, which is the antecedent here, and it's the subject of the main clause, whereas this relative pronoun and its clause is an object of a preposition. Because the subject is what of the relative clause out loud? Anyone? 3, 2. It's you. dicebas is second person. So you would be the subject of the relative clause. The girl is fortunate. What kind of girl? The girl cooey. That was another thing I wanted to do. Real quick. If y'all still have this chart up, So when it's dative, it won't just be whom. It'll probably be specifically what? Anyone? It's dative. What kind of preposition would it be before? Yeah, it'd probably be like to whom. It could maybe be for. It's not even right for. It'll probably be to whom. An accusative won't have a preposition. It'll just be like a direct object. It'll be receiving a verb. Quo. As we saw, quo. It's just going to be a preposition that takes an ablative, which is most of them still. Preposition plus whom. So that could be any. It could be sub, day, in, x. Any of the prepositions we had. And the one we just saw was day. It was from. And then again, genitive, it could just be whose. Or, and you might want to add this, if it's a thing and not a person, it'd be like of which. I guess not that. So it would never be of that. So I should add that to the actual slide itself. Sorry, internet kids. Who's still on the internet at this point? Because it's not Sage. She's in another class. Oh, is anybody? Do I need to? Yeah, there's somebody. Oh, yes, the other class. That's all it is. Thank you. I think Addie is disenrolled now. Farewell, Addie. The girl to, oh, okay. So it's the girl to whom, and then Dot has, I don't like this one. It has a drop subject. It's like to whom he or she, we don't know, gives a book is fortunate. He is giving. Okay, that's a little better. So Kui here, the dative relative pronoun. The antecedent is Puella. Puella is the subject of her sentence. The Kui that's referring to her is the indirect object of the relative clause. The boy, number 4, is brave. What kind of boy? The boy Kuius. Anyone? Who? Whose or whom? Huh? Not to whom. That's not. It looks dative. So whereas this is a dative, Kuius is actually the genitive. So it would be what? Whose? Yeah, make it possessive. Good. The boy whose patrum? Yeah, whose dad you Obamas? It means to help. We helped. Yeah, the boy whose father we helped is fortis, which is a new adjective, which will be in the vocab quiz that we take on Tuesday probably. And this last one, what's this? Oh my gosh. Bell to bell. Gotta love it, guys. Thank you for the class. Remember to take some caffeine pills in the morning, and I will see you all tomorrow. Good luck with the conclusion to your math test. All right. Goodbye, second period, kids.